Yep,
Let's
you're
see.
recording. It says St. James is recording.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Where?
Oh,
Here we
here we
go.
go.
Hey guys, I've got to say
There we go.
long.
Bye.
I've got
Bye.
to,
Who was that? Bye.
It's Cookie.
yeah, I've got to say so long. My son just called. He's bringing me breakfast.
Oh,
All
nice.
right. Joy.
Hi,
Nice.
All right, Cookie. Okay, everybody have a great day.
Thanks,
too.
Cookie.
Joy.
See you all.
Enjoy breakfast.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Austin, we're not hearing anything.
You're not hearing anything?
No, not from the video.
All right, let me see what I can do.
Matthew 22 is Holy Week,
Yes, now we hear.
smack dab in the middle of
All right,
Holy
good.
Week. The conflict in Jerusalem is escalating. Jesus knows this, and it's at that point that he's tested by clearly someone who probably was trying to entrap him. He knows that. It was the guy who came up and said, "What is the greatest law in the entire legal edifice of Moses?" And Jesus responds, drawing on what Moses taught in the Hebrew scriptures in Deuteronomy and Leviticus. You shall love the Lord your God with all yourself, all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says, on these two hang all the law and the prophets. It hadn't occurred to me that when Jesus said that, he was actually talking about how you live in an uncertain period of time, about how you live in any period of time, but how you navigate in particular in uncertain territory and tough territory. He was in uncertain territory in Holy Week, and it was tough territory. It wasn't a pandemic, it was a passion. And he said, love God with everything you got. Love your neighbor in the same way. Love yourself. And so I decided last week that I was gonna make sure every day I did 3 things very simply, or at least thought about them. How can I love God today? Very simply, nothing complex. How can I love my neighbor, others? How can I love myself? And it occurred to me that just sometimes asking the question, you may or may not have an answer, but you may figure out an answer for that day. That sometimes just asking the question can help in times of uncertainty, in days of pandemic, and in times when the days are just going to keep going on and on and on. How can I love God today? How can I love my neighbor today? How can I love Michael today? One thing I've started doing in my prayer list is keeping a list of groups of people to pray for. And I've been praying for first responders, folk who work in hospitals, the folk who keep the grocery stores open, the pharmacies, police officers, firefighters, ambulance folk, people we can't even see, people who keep the internet going. I mean, all sorts of folk. And so I would offer this prayer for all of them, all of the people we don't see, but who help to keep life livable, even in time of pandemic. Keep watch, dear Lord, with those who work or watch or weep, and give your angels charge over those who sleep. Tend the sick, Lord Christ. Give rest to the weary. Bless the dying. Soothe the suffering. Pity the afflicted. Shield the joyous. And all for your love's sake. Amen. Love God. Love your neighbor. And love yourself day by day. God love you. And you keep the faith.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, great. Well, that's Michael Curry, our presiding bishop. A
Very
man,
nice.
I think we're fortunate to have this man.
Lord Jesus,
Wait a
receive
minute,
my
I gotta get
spirit.
off.
Then
There we go. I think we're fortunate to have Michael Curry as our, what's going on?
No, you're good.
You're good.
Huh?
You're good. You're good.
All right, good. Michael Curry is an interesting archbishop for the Episcopal Church, it seems to me. He's really an evangelical in so many ways, particularly in the way he preaches. If you've ever seen him in a sermon situation in a church, he's very energized, very energetic, and he talks the theme that he is putting forward in his time as archbishop is that of, he talks about the Jesus movement. He's very unapologetic about his own personal relationship with Jesus Christ and is encouraging us to do the same. Now, this is different language than we're used to in the Episcopal Church. So I think it's refreshing. And I love the theme. This very short sermon that he just preached is 4 minutes long. And he recorded that back on March 30th. And I think that it's so apropos for now, even now at this stage of the whole pandemic thing. Love God, love your neighbor, and love yourself. And how can I do that every day? And that beautiful prayer that he read is from evening prayer in the Book of Common Prayer. Keep watch, dear Lord, with those who work or watch or weep this night, and give your angels charge over those who sleep. Tend the sick, Lord Christ. Give rest to the weary. Bless the dying. Soothe the suffering. Pity the afflicted. Shield the joyous. And all for your love's sake. Amen. That's a beautiful, beautiful prayer. One of my favorites in the prayer book. So the challenge that he's putting out to us, even in this time, is to say, today, this day, how can I love God? How can I love my neighbor? How can I love myself? And of course, maybe we're a little bit uncomfortable with that concept of, or think that the idea of loving ourselves is something selfish. But the whole point of what Jesus preached, to love God, to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And the beginning point, and it's a point that any psychologist or counselor will say, unless you love yourself, you can't love anybody else. We do not have that ability that if we don't love ourselves, we can't get beyond ourselves. And the whole idea of loving others is to get beyond yourself. But if you're so preoccupied with yourself because you don't love yourself, you're not able to reach out. So that's a very valid point that he's making. We need each and every day for us to find some small way to love ourselves and thereby be able to love God and love our neighbors. Anybody got any thoughts on that? Again, I don't want to be the one doing all the talking. This is a conversation. This is coffee hour.
I got something for you. The pastor, the bishop,
everybody-
sounds a lot like you, Father Murray.
Hmm?
You do a lot of what
Sounds a
the
lot
bishop-
like what?
your
Oh,
contribution
me.
to us and your amount of contribution with your thinking and how you're putting it out there to us since you started has been very big in a way that has reached us, and you've shared with us through the holidays, especially to make more of us come together, even in longer periods of time, even like now with the 10 minutes break and then come back again. You've done a lot also, evangelical, whatever
you know,
title you want to give it.
I'm just, yeah, I mean, I'm not worthy of particular praise in this. I just think that I'm trying to do the best I can, like many other clergy are trying to do at this particular point in time.
Right.
But for all of you out there, I'm interested in how this text today, how these words from the bishop strike you in our situation right now. What can we do to fulfill all these things that he's talking about?
Well, I was going to say something. It's kind of funny, but when I was a child, I was born a wild child and a tomboy. My mother often said that she had 3 boys. And in the 50s and the 60s, both at church and school, I did not fit the mold of the little girl in a dress sitting nicely with her hands in her lap. So I was the bad child. You're bad. You need to sit over there and time out. You need whatever. Church told me I was bad. School told me I was bad. And my mother had to make me toe the line. So, you know, sometimes I find it very, very hard to love myself because I grew up as the bad child. And yet I grew up in a very, very loving family, and my parents loved me. My father said, "You're too wild for me." And sometimes he would say, "This kid is getting nuts." And I'm going out in the barn. And he'd go out to his workshop. But I grew up in a very loving family. And I do know that I am a good person. Let's say that I've grown into being a good person with some bad hang-ups, like some bad actions, like a ferocious temper. But I think in a way, we all love ourselves. We all care about ourselves. We care about what we look like and what we're wearing and our homes and expressing love to our family members and our friends. I think that we all do love ourselves. I think even if we have these childhood drawbacks, we do. We love ourselves, and we love ourselves by how we surround ourselves as, you know, with nice things. You know, we surround ourselves. We try to have nice things. And we also express goodness and love and compassion. And I think what Austin just said, if you don't love yourself, how can you express this to others? So I think we do love ourselves, even though sometimes we say, "Oh, you're such a bad girl." So.
Okay, somebody else?
I think for me, loving myself, I used to, I guess, love myself in my old self before I come to know Christ. It's different from after coming to know Christ. So what I've learned, I guess, for my personal experiences, the ability to love as God loves comes from God. So I pray that, you know, first is to love God first, so that that God's love flow into me and that will enable me to love myself and love others, you know, according to the way he loves us, not as the way we picked up how to love from the world.
No, that's good, Tuan, because as God fills us with his love, that he fills us to overflowing, and that overflowing goes out and shows the love and compassion of God to others in our daily walk. That's very good, Tuan.
Yeah.
I'd like to say one more thing in regards to the bishop. It just is everyday mind programming, instilling, acknowledging from others who are in any way, shape, or form kind-giving, love-bearing, Christ-bearing, and going to church on a weekly basis. It's just like, it's a training. The bishop is telling us what the 3 things he does. I'm sure that everybody in our church basically comes from that somewhat concept anyway, because we've been in this for so long. And the installation, but what we do by coming every week just keeps reaffirming that kind of stuff. So as I go in my life, if I have what I have, and I didn't have much as a child, and you have more in life, you give. You give back to God the money that he gave us, which is the 10% or whatever it is. But these so-called 1%ers, if they really didn't give so much concentration on how they want to transform the world by their book concepts and came from God, this whole world, our whole planet, would be a majorly contributing beautiful, beautiful earth, like the lovers of Christ in the churches share and give and learn. And the only way we can do that is by continually taking time in the gifts that God gave us to be grateful for them and to respond with givingness to someone lesser, or it doesn't matter who, but in the poor of the poor, because Jesus Christ always told us that. Yes, but that specifically, like the lady in the room who's by herself, it's like, oh my God, what can we do? What else can conceptually be done by the planet of female and male peoples to help this poor lady and the other ladies, you know, wherever they are, whoever they are, you know, because if we don't, nobody's doing it. The guys upstairs, they don't have anything. The guys across the street, you know, it's like if we could just take away the SHI in our brains, the concepts of blocking us away from things, we would be all the more what the bishop is saying. It's continual transformation.
Very good.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Bill, you got anything?
Off
lot
the
of
top
this
of
has
my
to-
head, I'm
a
just
lot of-
having
a
a
lot of-
good time
A
listening.
lot of this has to do with your sermon this morning.
Oh, that Bill. Okay.
Bill.
On mute.
Okay, there, I finally unmuted myself.
You back?
Jeez, this is technical stuff is too much. No, I'm kind of burned out, Father. The truth. I think I thought about it too much lately. I love Bishop Curry. I've met him several times, and he's just a very special person. I wish I had his enthusiasm and whatnot.
You do.
You're
But,
tops. Like, come on.
But anyway, I don't think about that stuff. You know, I'm the anti whatever. I don't think much about that, stuff. I guess I should start. Yeah, I'm a deacon. What do you say? Yes, Father.
You offer us so much. You're transforming by your homilies.
You have to know what it's like. I just yesterday was the 5th take over this conference call here. Yesterday was the 5th anniversary of our ordination. It seems like the 20th. And really, because you go back further, it's a long process. But I think of how I became a deacon, and I'm just a typical Episcopalian. I don't think about any of that stuff. Although some of you guys certainly think about it a lot. I'm kind of looking forward to the last service of the, and then we go on summer break. I can't do that anymore. But it's a long haul. And so as a deacon and going to school, I said something in my sermon, but I took it out because I would talk about, if you know me, I spend so much time catching up on all the things I never paid very much attention to as a Christian. And I tell people, I was very blessed. Somebody gave me a very strong faith. I don't know who it was, but I thank them for it. But I don't think about it much. I just always, have this belief and faith and trust in the Lord and stuff like that. But I live it every day. Every day I'm reading this stuff, and as I say, I'm trying to catch up so I get to a point where I'm comfortable talking about my faith. It's hard, and praying. Don't even go down that road. I have a real problem with prayer. That's why I try to put prayer in every sermon. Kind of force myself to do that. But if I'm going someplace, somebody might ask me to say a prayer. I always have one in my pocket. I sneak it out like a cheat sheet or something. But I'm not very good at that stuff. So, but anyway, I don't know what did that answer? That doesn't even come close to answering your question.
That helps, and I can relate to your conversation about a sermon. When I prepare a sermon, the first person I have to convince about the sermon is myself.
No, but I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
That's right.
There's a lot of interior work that goes on in the presentation, in the preparation, and in the presentation of a sermon.
Well, that's an example.
I thought you were particularly on the ball this morning.
Oh yeah, it was a very good sermon.
Oh, well, thank you.
Very good.
But I had to convince myself about the coronavirus, where I mentioned people are out there saying, "Where is God?" and all this, and I would say, "Well, but you wonder, like, where is God in all of this sometimes?" Although I have faith that he's out there, but so when I'm preaching, I have to, sometimes I question a lot of things. Yep. I always said I never question that stuff, but I do. I think about it. I don't question it. But,
just going to check you up there and tell you that God is not out there. God is in here.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, that's true. He's way down deep in there someplace.
Oh yeah.
And he always has been. I feel that way.
And he comes out in your ministry as he comes out in everybody's ministry, because all of us here have ministries. We have the ministry that we received in our baptism, and that ministry is to spread the love of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And that God that lives deep within us, when we're doing that, that God comes out. That God is to be seen in our very faces. So I'm really, the whole idea of loving God, loving our neighbor, loving ourselves, it's very real to me.
Yes. Yes. And like I said about last week, my mother always said, there is no happy history. Bad things, whether it's pandemics or wars or starvation, it's been happening since the world began. And this is not a reflection on God. When we are hit with tough times, whatever those tough times may be, I think that God is present in us. It's us stepping up to the plate and actually walking out into the world and showing the world what God is. through our actions. It's not, we're not waiting for God to take it all magically away.
Right.
But during a bad time, it's how we react, and that our faith grows stronger. And as our faith grows stronger, that Jesus and God will get us through, that faith will project out.
God gives you the strength.
Yeah, I think that, you know, my friend sent me this stuff about conspiracy theories, and I wasn't actually happy with this, but I said, look, if the powers, if these people, if it's government, if it's whatever, I said, they might try to crush us, but God will always lift me up. And then I sent her a beautiful picture of Saint Joan of Arc and said, this is us. We are warriors for Christ. This is the way we need to step out into the world right now. We have to continue to fight and to continue to show the love of God in hard times. That, to me, when there's a bad time, a pandemic, that's what we need to do. Step up higher and better and push out.
Yes, very good. We are warriors. That's what I was told even by Dr. Paul on YouTube. We've been watching him for months. And the only thing that kind of frustrates me is that we might have to go down supposedly smiling and let ourselves suffer like Jesus Christ did on the cross to make a difference. It's a little difficult to be able to live like that. I know I have my free will, and I won't be able to do that. And the only thing I think is correct in what Leanne is saying, we are warriors. Dr. Paul says the same thing. We are warriors. I've read books on warriors coming out from within inside of ourselves through supportive, loving people to bring us up forward. Like Father Bill used to say that too. Speak up, whatever. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
can we hear from somebody else now?
God doesn't give us any more than we can handle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
I have made one observation though during this pandemic and everything. I've noticed how even strangers, people who haven't met before, you meet them at the store, and when you're going out, they say, "Stay safe."
Yep.
Everybody knows
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
I think this is making us realize that we have to care for each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I heard on the radio, the woman was a nurse, and she works and she's making a good income, and she's busy right now with what's going on. It was the 101.5. She gave away her $1,200 to somebody who needed it. My girlfriend paid for the groceries for the people that were in front of her, and she did it yesterday, going to 4 or 3 people, going because she has the money and so forth. And we are doing what we can. Yeah, and it's safe. Be safe.
Yeah.
So listen, I see, Kathy, are you making masks?
Yes.
See, look at the mask that Kathy made for me. Can you see this?
Oh, wow. Yes.
I made one for Bill
nice.
too.
Oh,
I
that's
have one for
brilliant.
Bill. I have to get it over there.
Wow.
She's got
It
the
says,
I can't come out without it, Kat.
Oh, I don't
my
want to hear
soul
that.
my soul doth magnify the Lord, it says.
Oh.
And then in the other one says, for nothing will be impossible to God on the other
Oh.
side. So that's kind of like what Marilyn was saying a moment ago. Nothing is impossible to God.
Yeah.
We live in God's love every moment of every day. So I'm very grateful to all of you that we're able to be together like this. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a
Yeah.
great thing.
Yep, very nice.
And I enjoy the little conversation we have here. And if any of you have any thoughts about other videos that maybe are special to you that you might want to share, that would be very good too. I don't want to be the only one setting the agenda for this get together. if you guys have any thoughts, it'd be great.
Okay.
Hey, Nan, you said Dr. Paul. Who's that?
Dr. Paul Cortell. He's on YouTube. He was even on last night. We watched it last night. It was done 4 hours earlier with a pastor, and he brings guests on. George Webb from YouTube, Cliff Hugh, a very brilliant guy, brings on a lot of smart people, and they're really talking about the biochemically generated, virus is going on for a long time. A mayor out of Brielle talked about how he was affected in November, and he's very conscious. Like, he's the kind of guy who would go on Dr. Paul's website. He's very educated in a couple of different fields, and he knows the game of what's going on, and he knows the political situation that's going on with these people standing around Trump, and the hearsay, he say, what's going on, and scientifically.
Is this Dr. Paul, is he local guy?
He's in Manhattan.
Oh, he's in Manhattan. Okay.
He's working to get the online study to become a heart surgeon. He has several other degrees. Rob is behind me. He could say detailedly his specific technical. So
that's it. If any of you have anything that you'd like to share with the group on a Sunday morning, just let me know so I can set it up. And my suggestion to you is, like, for example, if you think you have a particular video that's good, make sure it's short. We don't want a half an hour video to watch. We just need something that will stimulate conversation. So, like, for example, this morning I chose that. It was 4 minutes and 4 seconds is all that he spoke for, and that's enough to get the conversation going.
Yes, I sent away several cassette tapes to a former client of mine who's a Muslim. Lovely man. Lovely man. He was raised in the Catholic world in his country. And I gave him these tapes on the founding fathers of our country and how they suffered and their faith. And quite a few of these men were presidents of universities. And you couldn't even be a president unless you were a true walking, talking, living Christian with the faith of the Bible, which I never knew. I only heard it in the tapes. Now he has them, and Dr. Paul is very upset what's going on, and he's like a founding father patriot. And he talks about patriots coming out and becoming, we are warriors. We've got to stick together, because if not, such and such and such and such may be coming over upon us, and we'll have no control over what happens to us. And like the founding fathers, they had faith, and they brought the Constitution.
And we've got faith, and we have our warriors too. Thanks be to God.
Yes.
So listen, we will see you all next week.
Okay.
Anybody else? By the way, Catherine, are you there?
Yeah, she's still there.
Catherine.
Yeah.
I mentioned during church that Catherine's mother is in a nursing home, has been diagnosed with corona.
Well, she's asymptomatic.
What?
She's asymptomatic. She's tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she's doing pretty well.
As far as I know. God.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will keep.
They do testing every day, and we get a report. My brother and I, they email us every day, and they themselves have Zoom every day to keep us all posted. Thank God, it's very minimal of how many people are tested positive. Generally, the numbers are like 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, out of an entire nursing home with staff, that's not shabby.
Yeah.
That's really good when considering all the other stories that we've heard.
Yeah, right.
Well, actually, they were probably very, they must have had, I guess, a crystal ball, or they just were smart. They eliminated from coming into the nursing home from the get-go. So Michael and I have not seen our mom since probably the beginning of March. And we were like, that's fine, as long as everyone stays safe. We don't, it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, you're in our prayers, and so is your mother.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Austin,
God bless you all.
Austin.
Yeah.
I sent you email about downloading your sermons for the other days that I don't have record, and also Bill. Did you get that?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you do it?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't do it,
Okay.
but I will.
So
Thank
Bill
you.
also
By the
had
way-
a sermon. I think it was like on Tuesday or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I did yeah.
During Holy Week. Yeah.
And Ascension Day is coming up, and I'm going to do a sermon. I'm going to do a service on Ascension Day, which will be a week from this Thursday. Normally, people, it used to be in the good old days, Ascension Thursday was a big deal. People went to church in droves for Ascension Thursday, but nowadays, most churches don't have services on Ascension Thursday. They do it on the Sunday closest. But this year I'm going to do it online, so I'll keep you notified about that.
Sounds good.
If there's anything I can do to help, let me know.
I will. All right, then.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
God bless you all, and stay safe.
God bless.
Bye.
Stay
Stay well.
Keep your head down.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. God bless.
Bye. God bless
All
you.
right. Bye-bye.
Figure out how to turn
Bye.
this off.
Yeah, how do we turn it off?
I will end the meeting for all.